Hello everybody. Testing, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear the music? Check 1, check 2. Let's see, where is TikTok? Oh, I don't have TikTok open. Let's fix that. Profile, there we are. And we're live. Hooray. Wicked! I can always count on you to show up. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Can you hear the music? I'm doing my miking a little different today. I'm still trying to figure out how to make everything work with OBS, so my apologies if the sound is not up to par. With what it was over the past couple days. Time is it? 1 o'clock. All right. Only got a couple of hours, so we need to get hustling here. Can you guys hear the music? Does the music sound all right? Is it too high, too low? Don't like the song? It's good. All right, good. That's all I can ask for. Again, the music isn't the sole focus of our operation here, but I do try to, make it somewhat pleasant for people to listen to. All right, I'm streaming in 4 places today. Today we are on gosh, why can't I think? We are on TikTok, we're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, and for the first time I'm streaming on Discord. So we got 4 places we're streaming to. Isn't that just amazing? And I have like 3 browser windows open: Discord, OBS. It's crazy. And I'm not seeing anything in YouTube or Twitch chat, so I'm going to send a message. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to send it here. I'm just testing to make sure that it shows up in the live stream chat. I was a little concerned yesterday that it might not be showing up, so give me a sec here just to make sure that that is the case. Here we go. Yeah, for some reason YouTube chat's not showing up in the stream chat. And that concerns me, of course. Alright, well, what are you going to do? We'll get the bugs worked out here at some point. Although the good news is it does show up in multi-chat on OBS, so if I just keep an eye on it there, we should be okay. Alright, good to know. Alright, good. That's what I need to know. Fabulous. Alright. So, as you all may or may not know, we're working on the Harvest Collection. So far we've got our cute little cornucopia done here. We've got our Beagle cornucopia. Cornucopia, also Horn of Plenty. And then, of course, we did have to do, I know it's not always politically correct, but you know what? I have to appeal to as many people as I can. And personally, I think the Pilgrim Penguin is kind of cute. So we have a pilgrim penguin. How about that? How about that? How about that? Thanks, Pixel. Appreciate it. You like my penguin? My pilgrim penguin? I say that fast 3 times. A Utah print. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. I'd like to think it is. So today we're going to mess around a little bit, I think, and create a Scarecrow. Alright, so bringing up my reference here because I've got some reference images. Oh, the church is obsessed about pilgrims. Got it. Are you talking about which church, if I can ask? Are you talking about just the church in general? Because I grew up... Oh, Latter-day Saints. Okay, okay. I didn't know that. That's actually... That's kind of interesting. I didn't know that. Mormons. Gotcha. Yeah, Huh. Well, I'm not obsessed with pilgrims, but they were a large part of, when I grew up. And again, I'm a Gen Xer, so when I was in school, we had pilgrims and we had Indians and we had, turkeys and all of that. So I'm not trying to offend anybody, but at the same time, I gotta stay true to my roots. So anyway, let's move on from this little guy, and I want to show you this because I don't know if you guys saw this last week, but this is something that I was working on in terms of different ways to do joint construction. All right, so we've got the body here. We've got some pivot points there, and then of course the parts around them. Same concept through here. And while this works, I haven't actually printed out a test of this. I will probably sometime this week. I'm actually going on vacation next week, so I don't know that I'm going to be streaming. So I'm going to try and stream as much as I can over the next couple days, just in case you guys miss me. And if you don't, that's okay too. But like I said, I've been kind of playing around with the different ways to do the joints. And no, I'm actually driving a road trip to Colorado. So there's these joints, there's the usual link joints. These take a little bit more time to do. Actually, not as bad as I was afraid that they might turn out to be in terms of complexity and difficulty. But what this joint does is it allows you to retain, the shape of the object that you're hinging. The other type of joint that I'm going to work on, and we might incorporate into our Scarecrow, is a center pivot. So this bar goes all the way through here, and instead of it having this cap here on the end of the bar just goes all the way through, and then it splits here. So it's kind of like a knee joint. Basically, it's an elbow. I think they're called elbow joints. It only swings, one direction with limitations, or in one plane, one axis of rotation. Can't think of the word. Anyway, I'm going to turn X-ray off. I'm going to save this again. So let's open up our base scene, because that's where we always start. Our base project. All right. Yes, road trips can be fun. I'm going to turn on our grid so we can see. And I like to work from the top down. So, all right, so we're going to stretch this out. This will become our body. And anybody that's seen me work before, you know that I like to work with primitives to get everything set up and the composition set up in such a way that that I'm happy with, and then we start drilling into the actual sculpting. So legs are kind of tube-like, so I think we'll start with a tube here, and we'll just create a tube over here, and then we'll mirror it, because obviously you want your guy to have a couple of legs, or gal, either way. We'll need arms, so that'll be another tube up here. And it doesn't need to be that big, so we'll make it a little smaller. He needs a head. Let's give him a head. Turn snap off here. And let's go back to our tube. These legs are kind of long. I don't think they need to be that long. In fact, I think the body's a little... Whoa! Don't want to do that. Alright, I'm going to pull everything out of the sphere because this is his body. And I'm trying to make the body just a little shorter. And then we'll move the legs up where we want them. He's going to have a hat, straw coming out of various appendages. Going to make him wearing pants, because he's a scarecrow. Jacket. I'm going to set our camera to turntable. It's a little easier to control. Okay. And then we'll move these down on our print line, which will be right about there. Flatten out that torso just a little bit. Bring the legs down. I am going to have him print flat on the print bed, so his back will be flat, kind of like what we did here on these guys. I think we'll flatten his head out just a smidge here as well. Thank you everyone for joining us. Hope everybody's having a good day. Okay, so I'm going to pull the top of this torso in just a little bit. Alright, so there's our basic humanoid slash scarecrow shape. Now I think what I want to do, let me think about this just for a second. I think I'd like to make it where he can stand up. So that'll bring some slightly extra challenges to the table. I'm going to snap this, and if I make him stand up, then his legs eventually have to come down to some feet that will give him the ability to stand flat. His feet will have to stand flat. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to turn snap off now. I'm going to create the sphere that we'll use for his feet, and we'll pull this down. Whoop. Okay, it's already obviously in a mirror. I'm going to pull this out just for the moment, and then we'll mirror it so we have a little more control. Again, we're going to trim the back, but again, like our penguin here, you can see our penguin's feet are flat, which gives it the ability to stand up on its own. So that's what we're shooting for here. And the way we'll accomplish that is the legs can be at whatever angle you want, but these feet have to be flat, have to print flat on the soles of the shoes. And bear with me, this is my first time creating a Scarecrow, so if it doesn't go according to plan, we always have the ability to start over. Let's trim off the bottom of these shoes here, and then just to make sure that they are nice and smooth on the edges here, we'll go ahead and remesh them. There we go, nice and smooth, just like I said they'd be. I'm going to move them out just a little bit like that. Yes, in fact, good, that's a great question. Everything that that I create incorporates or has the option, sorry, I whacked my camera there, has the option of a model that will have a hoop built into it, so you can either hang it as an ornament or you can hook it onto a keychain or as a charm for your backpack or whatever. So yes, short answer to your question is absolutely. Now, we don't want to turn these shoes in this orientation at all, because we trimmed it off nice and flat. The good news is now it will stand up as long as we get the balance of everything correct. So keep the weight distribution over top of the feet as much as possible. But I think we should be fine. Maybe we can expand out. Whoop, okay. Once again, I'm going to pin this open so we don't lose it. I'm going to take this out of the body. And I think we need to name some objects here. So let's go shoes. And this is everything else. We don't want that. So I'm going to pull, this is our legs, that's our forearms, and that's our head. So the head, we will put the head on the body. Actually, I'm going to keep it unparented from the other objects until we get everything in the proportions that we want. This will be legs, and this will be arms. And I'll name the shoes as well. I named the mirror shoes, but you get the idea. And we'll call these appendages. Just to be funny. Okay, so we've got our appendages, we've got our shoes, we've got our head and our body. Now I can edit these items separately. Again, I want a little weight out here toward the front of his feet so he doesn't fall over. Do the same thing with the head. Bring this body forward just a little bit more. And then these legs actually don't go up high enough to connect to the body. That's okay. We'll just bring them up like that. Now there's a part of me that wants to make these legs a little longer so I can get another pivot joint in here. But these will be part of the body, so maybe we'll be okay, because it'll pivot here at the hips, and then if we put his knees here, we'll have pivot on the knees. I think we should be okay. Again, as I said before, if we're not okay, we'll do it again. Okay. Sorry, got a lot of screens going here. I'm trying to keep track of everything. Alrighty, let's see. I think I'm going to turn on starting and ending radius. Now the question that I haven't really figured out or haven't answered in my own head yet is how I'm going to make the arms pivot. Typically when you see a Scarecrow, I think his arms are kind of up, Again, kind of, like the penguin. So I'm thinking what we might do is create arms that'll pivot out from his body like that. So he can stand there and scare off the crows, and then at the end of the day he can put his arms down and continue on his day. By the way, that was my ghost penguin. This is the normal penguin. Just in case you're wondering. Okay, let's see. I'm going to turn on X-ray so I can see inside here. Thanks for joining us today. If you don't follow us already, be sure to shoot us a follow. Love to have you around. Be part of our conversation going forward. Alright, now I feel like I don't need to do this right away, but I want to put the hat on. Again, we're working with composition right now, and I feel like the hat and some of the details might actually add to what we're planning to do with this guy. And again, oh, you're getting a new logo? Nice. I like logos. I design logos. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do a lathe object first for the rim of our hat. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and start here, and we'll just draw a line out this way. If you don't have experience with lathes, I highly recommend that you try them out. We'll put a little curve to it, kind of like what we did with the Pilgrim's hat. And then we'll tap that button right there, which lathes our profile, spins it around the axis. I'm going to unlock it so we can take a walk around here. Alright, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this into position, put it right about here. Now the back's going to be cut off, so I'm not worried about it extending, down past our print bed line. And I'm going to put it right about here, and then we're going to add something to this. We're going to just keep it that shape for right now. I'm going to add a tube to the top. Oop, I didn't mean to do that. That was my bad. Alright, so that gets us started with our tube. This will be the top of our hat. I'm going to bring it over here, and then real quick, I'm going to come down here and make sure it's in the center, and it is. Excellent. I'm going to turn on the starting and ending radius. Alright, there we go. Make this a hat any Scarecrow would be proud of. Give it that Harry Potter sorting hat tilt to it. Now you notice we're getting some wrinkling here. Not necessarily a bad thing. I actually think it adds a little character to our hat. But let's suppose we didn't want that. Alright, what I would do is I would come in here and I would move my profile off to the side here of the path like that. And now whatever I do with this path, let me go ahead and reposition it to be in the center of our hat. Whoop. Okay. Now whatever I do to this path, it's going to be a lot less wrinkling and twisting of our object. Oop, we need to up our polygon count here. We've got a lot more control without this thing pinching itself. And the cool thing is you don't have to do this along the entire profile. So you can come in here and do starting and ending profiles. I'm going to copy this and then paste it to all. And then this profile here, if I want, I can move it back to the center of the extrusion path, or the profile path, if you will. So this just makes it so I can do some really extreme stuff here again, if I have the right polygon count. I can do some really extreme bends and sculpts by moving that profile off of the path, or to the to the edge of the path, so the geometry doesn't pinch when it goes around curves. Not that I would want this shape, but look, it's a swan head, and that's how ideas happen. All right, we're not making a swan head though. Let's see. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Let's undo that. There we go. I want to get rid of that. And I'm going to grab this profile. I'm going to turn that topology down because it doesn't need to be that. Take care, Pixel. We'll see you soon. Thanks for stopping by, as always. So again, as I said before, we're setting up our base shape. And then when we get it where we want, our basic shape, then we can go ahead and validate it and do some more sculpting on it. I don't think I want it to go that way. Maybe I'll give it a little lift here, like that. Yeah, I like that better. And then we'll realign our center point. Whoop. Put it right there so we can move this around where we want. And then we have to take into account before, as I said, our print bed, which will be this blue line here. So I'm going to bring this down. I don't mind a few supports. I know a lot of people try to do everything they can to design with 0 supports. I'm a little more of a realist, meaning that supports are not always, it's not always easy to eliminate them 100%. Again, do as much as we can. Cowboy Batman, hey, good to see you, man. Yes, it has been a while. There's been a lot happening. Crimson, we do this on an iPad Pro, and the application is Nomad Sculpt. How you been, Batman? I assume you're still Batman. It's a fun application. Can't beat it for $19.99. Some of the stuff you can do is just nuts. And today we are making a Scarecrow. Let me know if my music is too loud, folks. I'll try to make it interesting for you all to listen to, but I know sometimes the songs change and they get a little louder. It really is. I can't say enough good about this application. I really enjoy using it. If you give me a second here, I'll show you the model lineup that I've put together over the past 5 months. But let's go ahead and save this guy. This is my current model lineup. Where is it? Where is it? There we go. Again, this is the last 5 months worth of work. This is my base. This is my base model collection, and you can find them all here on our My Mini Factory profile. All the links are in our bio, and if you want to be a tribe member, you can join our tribe. The starter pack has 29 models in it, and then we're doing holiday collections as well. Right now Halloween is out, obviously. Our Halloween collection, which is this group of characters here, and a couple of other items, some tombstones which aren't in this arrangement here, but we've got our witch's cauldron here with the witch included. She's going for a swim, and then Dracula's coffin, of course, with articulating rings on the side. And some of our regular, we call them Wiggle Buds, in case anybody's wondering. They're all dressed up in their costumes, ready to go trick-or-treating. The broom is removable in the owl's talons. A lot of fun. And then, like I said, we're working on our harvest collection now, and that should be out, fingers crossed, October 1st, or at least the first week of October. And here's a little preview of that. Cornucopia. The horn itself articulates. So, yeah, a lot of fun. We got a beagle version because I own beagles and they insist on showing up everywhere. So there's our beagle version holding a pumpkin. You get the point. Thank you for the follow, Taylor. Appreciate it. Alright, back to our Scarecrow in progress. Don't hesitate to ask questions if you have. Crimson, that goes for you too, as well as anybody else listening. I love to answer questions about the application or about what we're doing or most anything else. Alright, I'm switching back into trackball mode so I can get a top-down look at this. Ooh, I like that. See, sometimes wrinkles aren't a bad thing. Move your profile around and get the look you want. Now, we may need some supports here, or we may not. It might be good enough. That might be friendly enough of an angle where we don't need supports into that. But I'll tell you what, let's move it up like that. Yeah, now that should print just fine without supports. You betcha. You have a good day. Thanks for stopping by, as always. Appreciate the company. That's a little too much. Oh, definitely don't want that. Alright, I'm going to leave that where... Now, you know what? I feel like it's centered up too much. I want to pull it off center a little bit. Alright, let's see how that looks. Alright, so again, remember, we're doing composition here. We're not so much moving into the meat of the sculpting process until we get the composition looking the way that we want. When I say composition, I mean, you know, the size of the elements in relationship to each other. So, alright, let's see. We got our legs, we got our feet. I feel like there needs to be some straw coming out of this guy's hands. So let's see what we can do with the tube tool. So we're going to create a tube over here off of the end of his arms. Now I could do hands or we could do just straw. We'll try straw first. That's a simpler approach. Okay. And it's already in a... that's what I'm looking for here. It's already in a mirror, so straw will probably kind of fan out a little bit. So let's go ahead and set it up for success right out of the gate with the fanning motion. Now I know this doesn't look a lot like straw, and that's okay. We can fix that, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this profile now and make it look more straw-like. Right now it is a round profile that we're extruding here. The default when you turn on profile is a square. I really wish they would change that, but for now it's a square. So we made it into a circle. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this, because what I want to do is I want to create the illusion of straw fibers. I'm just going to put some more points along this square here, or circle, which is now turning into a square. I'm going to turn snap off because I want a little bit of freedom. And then I'm going to turn these rounded points into squared points, corners, just by tapping on them like that. And pulling it in. Alright, let's see. Pull these in. Alright, same thing on here. There we go. Alright, let's jump out and see what we've got. And there you can see we've kind of got some a little more tube-shaped item here coming out of the end of his shirt sleeves. I'm going to increase the topology so we can just see the design in a little more detail. Actually, I'm going to increase it even more. There we go. Alright, I think we can do better than that, so let's come in here and fine-tune this even more. I'll pull these in even further, and now I'm going to bring these points out here and round these a little bit more like this. So imagine if you took a bunch of tubes or pieces of straw and looked straight at them. Then you would have these curves, or these, these semicircular curves. So that's basically what we're shooting for here, is kind of a looking down at a bundle of tubes look. But you know as well as I do that they're not going to be rounded perfectly. So what we need to do, once we finish this, is we're going to put a little motion to the tubes. There is no faster way to do this, so hopefully if you start playing around with Nomad, you've got a little bit of patience. But let's go back and see what we've got. Alright, so far that looks a little more straw-like, but what I want to do is I want to give it a little bit of an organic wave to it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on multiple profiles. Alright, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it to the other one. Alright, and then what I'm going to do, I can do a couple of things. I'll grab the starting profile. Actually, let's grab the ending profile, this one out here. And we can just move things around a bit. In fact, maybe even rotate it just a smidge. And we'll move it here to center. Alright, so already we've got a little bit of movement to the extrusion. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go ahead and turn on twist. And now everywhere there's a profile, I can twist this profile to put a little bit of organic motion to it like that, see? Alright, and if I want to put another profile here and turn on twist for that profile, do the same thing. So now we can get kind of a wave going. And just real quick like, now we don't have varying lengths, but what you can do in that case, what we could do is, let's say we take this one and we scale it down just a little bit. Probably should come from the top so we can keep track of what we're doing. And then let's clone it. Let's try cloning it. And I'll move it down and we'll stretch it a little bit. And then I'll go back into edit mode. Maybe we twist it the opposite direction. No, that doesn't really work. Or we just run it straight and twist it further up the line here. And maybe scale it down a little bit more so it's in the center. Now what I'm doing here is based on one profile, one group. Really, probably what the better way to do this, or the better route to go with this, is to do multiple bundles in here and then group them all together. And again, this is something you learn as you go. So another thing that you could do, let me show you this technique. I'm going to get rid of one of these. And let's go in and edit the profile. And let's get rid of some of these points along the path here. Yeah, give me just a second. It's going to take a little cleanup on aisle 7 here. That's okay. You eliminate points, by the way, just by dragging from one point to its neighboring point, and then it subtracts it. Now, using this technique, you'll be able to vary the length of your bundle. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to create little bundles of, like, I don't know, maybe, let's make it a bundle of 3. Okay, so there we go. Now, interestingly enough, you can see we've got the original profile out here. I want you to see this. We did the original profile, and then we did the one that only had this many points, and it still extrudes very cleanly from one to the other. Isn't that cool? So there's really a lot of things that you can do with the tube tool that you wouldn't think of. But I'm going to go ahead and copy this and just paste it to the rest, because that's kind of what I wanted to do. I'm going to snap to 90 degrees. Oop, not that way, I'm not. And then flip this around. And then we'll turn snap off. Actually, before we, you know what? Let's do this. Let me bring it out here. I'm going to try and straighten it as much as possible, because what we're going to do is we're going to put a radial repeater on this. Let's go to the twist. Oh, shoot. I didn't mean to do that. Need to go back into edit mode. Let's go ahead and straighten this out just a little bit. Alright, and then we're going to scale it down. And then I'm going to lengthen it out like this. Alright, so there we've got our basic straw strand. Wow, that was a bit of a twister as well. And I'm going to apply this item that we call a repeater on it. Radial repeater. Now, right now it's repeating on the y-axis, which is not what we want. Let's put it on the z-axis. Alright, and now you can see here it's repeating along the center of the z-axis, which is fine. All we need to do is just grab one of these objects and move it in. And then we're going to grab the repeater itself and move it out away from the body. And it's mirrored. Alright, we're not going to mirror it. I want to get this out of the mirror. We'll put it back when we're done, but I want to focus on this element over here first. So, if I tip this over, you can see it's now rotating on the z-axis, or it's duplicating on the z-axis. And what we can do now is we can move these objects We can increase, go back to our radial repeater, increase the number of items, and then again grab one of them and move it closer to the center, like this. And now you've got a bundle of straw. Again, they're all the same length, but once we validate this, we can go ahead and edit these as individual strands. And we'll worry about that later. Right now, I'm going to take the object and stick it into the arm. And I think you'll agree that, well, when we actually get it positioned where it's supposed to go, that looks a lot more straw-like. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, as real as that looks, that will be a nightmare for 3D printing. So you don't really want to keep it that small. I would probably increase the scale of these items. And we can shorten it down. Again, increase the scale. Bring it back closer to center. Now we could also do randomization. It gets a little tricky here. I will tell you. So you have to use this with a degree of caution. But there is some randomization that you can apply. So as it duplicates this, it'll vary, the size. You can vary the rotation. That's a little too much. And its center point of rotation, which is the translation. And if you want, you can just randomize it within this parameter. So you set your parameters, right? The rotation and the scale. And then you hit the dice button here, and it'll just randomize it until you get it to a point where you like it. And now your straw has varying lengths and positions and scales, and looks more like a little more of an organic object. And that's, again, this is a way to get things, situated quickly, and then move on to doing the rest of your sculpt, and then coming back to this and fine-tuning it later. So let's go back to our radial repeater. I'm going to move this into the arm, maybe angle it like that a little bit. And we got some spillage back here. Again, not too worried about it because that will eventually be trimmed off with the bottom of the model. Alright, and then when you get it the way you like it, and we will call it straw hands. We can take, and I'll call this straw hands, the radial repeater itself as well, and then I can mirror that radial repeater itself, the entire collection. I can mirror that over to the other side. So now I've got the straw hands mirrored across the z-axis, and that's what you wind up with. Scarecrow with straw hands. Pretty cool. And we'll probably do something similar around the feet here, coming out over the shoes. But I want to do a little more work on our bundle, our individual bundle, before we head down there. All right. In the meantime, let me go over here to our side view, and I think our legs need to come up a little bit more. In fact, actually, I think our torso. Let's grab our move tool and bring the back end down a little bit. Any questions so far? Anybody see anything that they're just like, whoa? What kind of trickery is that? Let's go ahead and save this guy where he's at. I need to send a message here real quick. Right. Sorry, I'm just looking things over. Yeah, so I think these straw tubes are still a little bit on the small side. Like I said, we'll do a little more tweaking on these later. The temptation is to tweak it now, but we don't need to do that. What we need to do is we need to move on to the rest of our objects. So let's think about this for a minute. So I think I want to have him wearing like a jacket and of course pants. It's going to pivot at the legs just below the jacket line, and then of course he's wearing a coat. Let's open these sleeves up just a little bit more. Sound like a fashion designer. Let's open these sleeves up a bit. I'm really getting the shabby chic feeling here, and I don't think that's him. Just saying. All right. Sorry, being weird. Okay, yeah, I'm liking that a lot better. Okay, yeah. He's going to need hair too, again in the same fashion as what we've done with the straw, but again, we'll come back to that. We'll keep moving in a general direction here. All right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a little trick which I call versioning. So we've got everything kind of basically set up the way that we want it, and I'm going to go and start doing some major changes now. All right, and if I step out here and start, wax on, wax off, and getting really crazy, I may find that it doesn't look exactly the way that I want it to. And now, if I haven't set up some sort of an exit strategy or, back in time strategy, then I'll be my goose will be kind of cooked. So I'm going to just go ahead and save this as Scarecrow 1. Now the cool thing is, if I really mess this up, I can go back to a point in time just by opening up the previous version before I started really going nuts with validating and sculpting and all that stuff. That's the reason I do it. Okay? Hopefully that helps with understanding where we're going next. So we've got Scarecrow 1, and we got the original Scarecrow. So every time I come to a major point of next steps, I'll go ahead and do a version. So I can always come back. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and validate the legs, and we'll validate the arms. Validate means I go from primitive to something that I can now sculpt. So everything should be sculptable. Not the brim of the hat. Well, let's go ahead and validate that. Alright. And actually, you know what? Yeah, no, we can still do it this way. Let's tilt the brim of that hat a little bit. kind of push it off to the side there. Alright, and the top of the hat we're going to raise just a bit. There we go. Now the question is that enough? I'm going to grab both these items and push it down on his head just a little bit more. Alright, I think that's good. Alright, Scarecrow 1. Now I'm going to save another version. And there's nothing wrong with saving multiple versions of your file. The nice thing is when you're done, you can just delete the versions you don't want to keep. And you're good to go. Let's see. So I put a little thought here into what we're going to do. I think we're going to do a kind of a neckerchief around his neck. So let's go ahead and move his head up just a little bit. I'll hold down my shift key and select these items so we can move them up as a group. And then once again, we're going to grab our tube and we're going to put a little scarf around his neck. Alright, so there's what we're starting with. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to turn the X-ray on so I can see through it, and then we're going to close it so it makes a loop. And we're just going to pull this around his collar. Turn X-ray off. And turn the grid off. It just kind of gets in the way once in a while. We're giving him a scarf because Scarecrow work can be a little bit chilly out there in the field. We don't want this guy being cold. And I don't want that there. I liked it before the way it was. Alright, so again we're going to go back to our profile, which is a square by default. And we're going to edit this profile a little bit. Because I want this neckerchief to look like it was something that was twisted around his neck. Okay, let's turn snap off. Again, just a little bit of a bump to it. Doesn't have to be anything overly dramatic. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into Actually, we need 2 profiles in order to successfully accomplish a twist. So I'm going to copy this, and we'll paste it across all. And then I just want the starting and ending profile, and watch what happens. I'm just going to give it a little twist. Turn this grid off. I think something is set to snap. That's going to be what it is. There we go. Alright, so now we have a twisted neckerchief around his neck. Let's increase the size just a little bit here to make it proportionate. Might be a little big, but let's run with it and see what we get. Alright, so we need a knot going around our neckerchief. Yeah, I think it's a little overdone, so let's drop it down a little bit. And then let's go ahead and create another, let's see, do I want to do a tube or a torus? I think we'll do a torus on this. We'll snap it 90 degrees. Thicken it up a little bit. Scale it down. Alright. Alright, we'll move it into place. Alright, so it's a torus. It's kind of its default look, other than what we've already adjusted. We can validate this now and come in and do a little bit of sculpting on it to give it more of a cloth, you know, wrinkled cloth feel. I want to turn the symmetry off. So that way when we're applying our sculpt to it, it's only sculpting where we put it and not mirroring it across the axis. So if I want to do actually I think we need to increase our polygon count there. Let's smooth it out. And now we'll go ahead and apply our cloth creases. Alright, we turn X-ray off. And I think we'll just move it off center just a little bit. So let's grab our gizmo and we'll realign its center point somewhere in there. So when we rotate it, it actually goes along with the actual neckerchief. There we go. Alright, so we've got we've got our neckerchief, we've got the knot. I think we need a couple of neckerchief ends hanging down. Let's fatten it up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to turn on radius for all points. That way we can adjust the thickness anywhere along the path where there's a point. We're going to bury this underneath the knot. And I think the profile that I want on this is going to be a little bit more. It's going to be a little bit more oblong. So this is where we would change that. Put a little twist on it because I want to have it lay flat on his jacket. Now the great thing is when I increase the profile, it's going to stretch it a little bit more oblong. Just like that. We'll do some further sculpting to this when we get the shape, the basic shape that we want. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. I want to move that pivot point actually up here. Okay, that looks good. So what I want to do is I want two of them. I want one here, and I want one there. I'm going to just rotate that over like that. Have it lay out here like that. Give it a little more of a I tied my own neckerchief look. Yeah. Rotate it in position. There we go. The only thing is it's laying up off of his chest, and we can't have that because that'll create supports where it's unnecessary. Let's just put it right back there on his shirt. There we go, just like the other one. All right, now we can go ahead and grab our crease tool and put a little swoop in there like you would expect. Whoop. There we go. And I think we'll go ahead and round those edges off a little bit. Actually, we're going to go ahead and remesh this. And then we'll hit it with our smooth operation. And then we'll smooth the ends out a little bit, like that. Step back and look at the proportions. So I think those actually might be a little bigger. Let's size them up accordingly. Maybe just lengthen them out a little. There we go. I like that. Alright, let's go ahead and do a save. And then I'm going to do a save as, and we'll do another version. Again, that we can come back to should we choose to. Alright, so we've done all the easy stuff. Now it's time to move on to the little more difficult parts. I'm going to check my trim lines. Everything looks good. In fact, I think we're at the point where we need to start trimming things before we start actually creating the articulation. No, actually, you know what we need to do next? We need to actually put some details on this guy, like, for example, his coat. He's going to need a coat. So this is his body, right? Well, on top of the body, we want a coat that comes away from his body just a little bit, especially down here at the bottom. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab our masking tool, and we'll grab the mask selection option. We'll turn symmetry off, and basically what I'm going to do, I've tapped the screen. That automatically masks whatever object you have selected, and then I'm going to unmask using my rectangle tool the bottom about where his coat would end. Alright. Alright, so there's our mask. This mask is what we're going to use to create his coat, just by going up here to the mask extraction. And I didn't take his neckerchief into account. That's okay, we'll fix it. And now what I want you to see is how putting a mask and then extruding that mask away from the surface, we can create new geometry, just like this. Isn't that fabulous? Okay? So, I think actually what I'm going to do, we're still working with our mask. I'm going to go ahead and use my lasso tool and create a little V down here where his jacket would open. Alright, we'll go ahead. Oh, it did it on the back too, didn't it? Alright, so when you do this, you want to make sure that you set your filtering to only paint the front-facing vertexes. Otherwise, it's going to do it on both sides. Some situations you want that, but in this situation, we don't. Alright, now if we flip it over, you'll see that it only did it on the front. The front-facing vertex, to be exact. Now we can go into our mask extraction tool. Alright, that's a good start, but I think I want that to be a little, maybe a little bigger. And you know what else? We're going to go ahead and make the bottom of his coat a little bit ragged, because he's a scarecrow, and that would suggest that his clothes is probably not looking like they just came from the showroom. Alright, so we'll start here, and we'll reset that. I'm going to solo this object, so we're just working on the torso area. Alright, there we go. That's a little more ragged there. Now if you want, if you're a perfectionist like myself, then what you'll want to do is come in here. We can go ahead and blur this a little bit. If we extract this now, this is what we get. And you can see how it's kind of symmetrical all the way around. Not a terrible thing, really. And again, I'm not worried about the back because that's going to be trimmed right where that grid line comes down here. But if it bothers you, then, you know, go in and use your masking tool. I'm not going to do I'm going to use the brush. And we can add a little bit of, you know, an organic feel to it if you want. Actually, I think we need to pump up the mesh here just a little bit. So just, you know, dirty it up a little bit if you want. You're the artist, so you just, you know, make it look the way you want. And I still have symmetry on, don't I? So turn symmetry off if you want a non-symmetrical edge. And then just dirty it up as much or as little as you want. I want that to be the split where his front coat seam goes. So make that a little bigger. And if you want to paint some areas over, paint it over. Just flip your tool. Maybe there's a portion that's been, a mouse or a crow has sat on him and chewed out part of the edge of his coat. That's always a possibility. But once you get that edge looking the way that you want, then you slip back into your mask extraction tool, and that's what you get. There we go. This can be used for a lot of things. You can put hair on somebody's head. You can make paint dripping off of a surface. And I'm just thinking of the organic application. Once you get it the way that you want it, then you come down here and you hit extract, and now it's its own geometry. And now you can do some further manipulation if you like, which we are going to do. We'll fix our neckerchief, don't worry about that. But we have the beginnings of a coat. Now the ends of our arms here aren't ragged like you would expect them to be along with the coat, and that's okay, we'll fix that. Not worried about that right now. I can hear some of you like, what's wrong with his arms? They look too perfect. And you're exactly right, they do, but we'll fix that. Alright, moving on. Actually, let's do a save before we move on too far. Alright, I'm going to grab these here while I'm thinking about it. We're going to bring these out now to the surface of his coat. And there you go. Alright, so we've got our coat. We've got our neckerchief. We've got our hat. Let's go ahead and play with this coat a little bit more. So I'm going to run a crease right down the center here where the where we'd have an overlap. Another thing that I could do, and I'm thinking about doing, is splitting this coat down the front. So let's just do that for demonstration purposes. Now I'm going to try something actually. I'm going to mask off. Let's solo the coat. Oop, not the neckerchief, the coat. I want to split the front, but I don't want to split the back. So I'm going to try something. I haven't done it, so it may or may not work. I'm going to go ahead and grab our rectangular masking tool. Alright, so the way this works now is what we have selected. No, I didn't. Oh, because I have. My bad. Let's go ahead and turn off front-facing vertex only. Alright. Now it should paint all the way through. There we go. Now I'm wondering if when I do a split now, because only this part here, the part that's unmasked, should receive the tool. So let's see if that works. I'm going to grab the split, turn on the grid just so I have a visual reference. I'm going to use the square, and we're going to tap split. Really hope this works. No, it went all the way through, and that's okay. There's some things that you can't do with just a mask. But what I can do is not disturb the back at all. So any kind of manipulation I want to do to the geometry now, this is too, whoop, hold on. Let's get out of our mask tool. This is its own piece now. Okay, so I can separate it, and I can also do some sculpting on it. Now that, the mask will help. So I'm going to grab this mask tool again, and I'm going to reset, and we're going to mask the back end of this, because I don't want my geometric manipulation to pass all the way. Oh, it only did. Dang it. Oh, no, let's try again. Undo. That's my bad. Alright, so there's our mask tool. I need to do this part and that part. There we go. Alright, that should, I'm going to turn X-ray off. It should have masked through everything, and it did. So now any manipulation I do of this geometry up front is only going to affect this area here that's unmasked. I am going to pump up our resolution to 350 or higher. So we have plenty of geometry to work with. Okay, now I'm going to grab my move tool. And we're not going to get crazy, we're just going to create a little bit of gap here. Okay, I'll open this up a little bit here. And just misalign this a little bit. And I'm going to remesh this. And then we're going to use our smooth operation. Same thing over here, we'll remesh it. Smooth it out with our smooth operation. And now we've given our coat a little bit more of an organic look. I'm going to grab the mask tool, we'll clear all. So now, for example, if I want to take my tube tool and create some stitching, which I do, to go across the front of our cloak or coat, we can do so. So I've got one here. And they're not going to be too complicated, so let's clone it, and we'll move it down here, and maybe give it a little bit of an opposite twist. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and validate these two pieces so we can, oh shoot, I forgot to increase the topology. There we go. And then we'll validate that one, increase the topology, and validate that one. And then I'm going to grab my smooth tool and just smooth down the edges here a little bit, or the ends I should say. Same thing here. Again, just give them a little more of an organic look, so it doesn't look like a couple of cylinders placed there. Alright, so there's the stitching holding his cloak together. Alright, I think we are creating a flexi Scarecrow. I'm going to go ahead and save this guy, and then we're going to do another version. Alright, let's go ahead and join these legs to the lower body here. Actually, you know what, before we do that, let's let me think for a second here. It is fun. I'm on here usually at least a couple days a week. Oh, by the way, once we get these pieces, you know, we did a little separation here on his cloak up front, or his coat. Now if we want to join these two pieces back into a single piece, we just select them both. Actually, we'll select one here first. And I'm going to show you a trick how to get the back end rejoined to the front, to the this piece joined to the other side there. I'm just going to come along here. There's a number of ways you can do this. I'm going to show you this way. Actually, you know what? Let's go this route. I'm going to grab the select mask tool. We will use our lasso. Whoa, no. Select mask. I don't know why it. That was weird. Shouldn't have gone brush on me. Alright, so there's our mask. We're going to invert this mask, because what we want to do is we want to pull. I'm going to turn solo off now. We're just going to blur it, and then we're going to grab our gizmo tool and we're going to pull this ever so slightly to the left. See how it eliminated that gap? Alright, we'll go ahead and get rid of our mask. I'm going to grab this piece and this piece. I'm going to solo it so you can see that we have our two pieces with the split up front. And then we'll just go ahead and weld it together by using our remesh tool. And there you go. It's now a singular piece. And I'll demonstrate that by pulling it off his body. Ball joints in Nomad. You need two different size balls. And in fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're probably going to do a ball joint on this guy. But I don't know if you'll be here for the whole process. What time is it? 2:30. I don't know if we're going to get to it today. But let me save where this guy is, and I'll demonstrate a ball joint for you. All right. I'm going to open up my base scene. All right. And that's a ball, but we're going to get rid of it and add new objects. So let's do a ball joint with a cylinder, shall we? Okay. You bet. That's what we're here for. We're here to help, right? Don't say it if you don't mean it. Alright, so I've got my basic cylinder set up here on the center axis. I'm going to go ahead and snap that to 90 degrees so we can lay it on its side, and then drop it down here on the table. Okay, so now let's suppose we want to ball joint this to, say, we want to ball joint this to a, we'll say this block here is our body. Alright, so I'm going to pull this out here. We'll move it up over here. Now let's widen it out. Now we can do it. Just keep it in the center here. It doesn't really matter. Alright, so we're going to ball joint this guy off of this block. Okay. Well, the first thing that you're going to need is you're going to need somewhere for this cylinder to go. All right, so I'm going to move my pivot point for this cylinder. All right, whoop, and I want it to pivot probably right about here. Right? So the first thing I need to do is I need to create a place. I'm going to turn snap off. As this rotates through its range of motion, you can see the first thing that you're going to need is to cut out this block so that cylinder has somewhere to rotate to, right? So what I would probably do first of all, well, let me ask you a question. Probably best to do this in an application that you're trying to understand or trying to get your head around. So what are you trying to do? Ball joints like in an action figure? Because I think that's going to be key in demonstrating the concept. Because I can make it pivot in here, but if that doesn't help you, or are you just looking for yeah, all right, so a 360-degree rotation. All right, so let's do something simple. Let's go ahead and clone our cylinder, and I'm going to snap this to 90 degrees. We'll snap it this way. All right. So now if you're looking to just create a knee joint, knees are not multi-directional. All right, they pivot one way. You know, it's like a finger. I can go this way all day long. I can't bend that joint that way. All right. Now, if you want a true ball joint like a shoulder, then your receiver will have to have. Let's start simple. Let's start with the bending joint like this. All right. Same principle applies. When this thing rotates through its range of motion, let me grab this again. It's going to need clearance on that ball to be able to accomplish that rotation. All right. So in order to visualize this, let's put our ball in there. Whoop, I didn't mean to turn it, I meant to scale it. Okay, so this ball has to live inside of this object and attached to this object. So right out of the gate, I'm going to tell you that this ball is too big, unless you're going to flare this object out, in which case it's not really going to look like a joint. So we need to scale this down. And it needs to, I'm going to turn on X-ray so you can see through. So it needs to live in here, attached to here, and it needs to rotate in here. Maybe we'll go a little bigger. All right, does this make sense so far? Let me know if I'm losing you. All right, we're going to move this a little closer. And I'm going to move my pivot point, again for demonstration purposes, to the center of our ball. All right, so again, as we rotate through the range of motion, you can see already that it's going to hit this cylinder back here. And we need to accommodate that. But the first thing we need to do is we need to attach this ball joint to this appendage. So what I would probably do in this situation is add a cylinder, pull it over into play, and we'll snap it to 90 degrees so we can flip it on its side, scale it down, put it up here as a receiver or a connector between our joint and the ball. All right. Okay, I'll turn X-ray off so you can see everything. Now, one thing to remember too is you want your ball joint, I'm assuming that you're going to want to be able to snap this together or print it in place. Now, your best option really is to print it in place, because then you can put this thing in here at any point along the surface of this ball that you want in order to, you know, and then create enough separation or enough clearance, which we need to do, between the ball and the inner edges of your item, so it'll pivot freely if it's print in place. If you're planning on snapping this together, it gets a little bit more complicated, and you'll have to experiment with the right amount of tolerances to both be able to snap it together and then still get that rotation without it falling out. See what I'm saying? So again, it depends on your printer setup, the type of filament you're using, the number of layers. Like I said, there's a lot of things that can come into play that will require some testing. But again, I'll show you the basic principle, and that is this. So we've got all of our elements set up. We've got, let's call this the lower leg. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and have a little fun with it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on what the symmetry is on. I want the symmetry along the y-axis. No. Actually, I think we're golden. Yeah. All right. So we'll give this a little more of a leg look. All right. Or at least the top of the shin look. And there's the beginning of our calf muscle. So let's push this up. Whoop. Let's push this up here. All right. And then this is going to be our thigh, so let's validate this, and we'll sculpt this accordingly as well. So there's our quad, and that can be pretty much that size there. And then we'll widen it here at the top like a thigh normally would be. All right. Now again, we're creating a knee. A knee would normally be a pivot, not a ball, or an elbow joint, but not a ball, but that's okay. We'll still get the same... Actually, we should probably taper this. Oop. We'll lock that so it doesn't move on us anymore. All right. We good so far? I'm going to save this in case we lose it. Let's call this, ball joint test. There we go. All right. So, quite simply, what I want to do here is I want to take all of these items here. Not that one. This panel. All right, let's open this panel. Actually, you know, real quick, let's name these. I'm going to call it shin. That is our connector and our sphere, and this will be our thigh. All right, right? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to grab these three items right here and marry them all together. Before I do that, I'm actually going to take, I'm going to take the cylinder and the sphere and marry these two together first. And you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to mesh those together at about 200. Don't worry about the tessellation. This is just for demonstration purposes. Now, before I join it to the leg, I'm going to use this, a duplicate of this, to create a Boolean. So I'm going to go ahead and clone it. And then I'm going to use my inflate tool here, and we're going to increase the size of it. Before I do that, though, I'm going to come up here and set my blending to something less than 100% so I can see through it. So here we go. See how that gets bigger? All right. So probably right about there is good. I'll remesh it real quick to clean it all up, and then we'll smooth it. Otherwise, he's going to have knee problems for the rest of his life. There we go. All right. Now, the only purpose of this Boolean is to cut out the thigh. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to grab this piece. We're going to come in here. We're going to set our blend back to 100%. Doesn't have to be, but I'm just doing it to demonstrate. And then we're going to hide it. All right, and then we'll grab the thigh with the Boolean part still selected, and we'll hit Boolean, and we're going to subtract it. Now watch what happens. We have, I'll just remesh this real quick. We have cut out, and smooth it. We have cut out this gap in here to receive or to allow our ball joint to move. Okay, and then all that's left to do after that is connect this piece again through our remesh operation, and a little bit of smoothing because again I'm a perfectionist when it comes to this stuff. All right, now you think you're done, but you're not. Why not? Well, I'll tell you why not. Because if we go ahead and move our pivot point now to the center of this ball to test it, always test your rotations, you'll see, I'll turn snap off, oops, it's running into our thigh. So you're only going to get that much rotation before it fails, or before it binds. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to cut out a section here in the back of your thigh, and then you need to round the edge of your thigh in order for this to, both the thigh and the, you could do the calf as well, or the shin. I'm going to turn the turntable on because this camera's a little hard to control. So what I would probably do is, again, come up here, and we could have kept a copy of the cylinder, I wasn't thinking. Scale this down. Let's bring it up. Let's scale it down to get it about the same size. And actually, you want it a little bigger. Let's go ahead and turn our blending on again, reduce the transparency so we can see through it. Scale it up probably about that much. That'd be a nice healthy amount. Results may vary. Alright, let's turn our blending back up just so we can see it. Now if you want to be graceful and, you know, somewhat organic looking, then what I would probably do is go ahead and actually increase the topology, get a nice smooth surface out of the gate. We'll validate it. We'll remesh it up to 200 and then smooth the end, because this is what you're going to use to cut out that groove out of the thigh. Alright. Same thing. So we've blown this up a little bit bigger than the cylinder that goes through there. Alright, I'm going to hide it. Once again, I'm going to select the thigh. I'm going to make sure, yeah, alright, make sure it's below the surface so it cuts into the thigh. Alright, and we're going to go ahead and do our Boolean once again. And turn that grid off because we really don't need it. And now we've got, we'll do a remesh again real quick. Oh, maybe a little higher. And a little smooth. There we go. Now, let's go back here. Select our object, go to our gizmo, and rotate it through its range and see what we get. Alright, still hitting this part here. That's okay. That's it. Whoop. That's an easy fix. We'll get to that. So now you've got, at least you've got this much range of motion. Okay. We need to carve this corner off here a little bit. That's easy enough. We'll grab our trim tool. I'd probably use circles so we get a nice round shape. Alright, move this right in line with the angle of your ball and then flip it. Actually, I take that back. We don't want to cut that. My bad. Oops, looks like I cut everything that I didn't want. Let's reset this. Yeah, my bad. So let's create our circle. Oh, shoot. Once more, with feeling. And then I'm going to shift into polygon mode because flipping is going to cut everything and we don't want to do that. So we're just going to flip to polygon mode. We only want this edge of the circle here to do any cutting. Let's see. So that we're cutting that much off of the thigh piece there. Alright, let's go ahead and hit our shape. That gives us a little trim off that edge. Now here's one thing to keep in mind when you're doing this. And this is where your engineering and testing and trial phase will come into play. Looks great, but the question you want to ask yourself is this ball wide enough to stay in here and pivot? And I think it looks like it will be. I'm going to actually change the opacity of this once again so we can see through it. Alright, so there is our, you can kind of see our groove here. It's narrower than the ball, so that's very important. We want clearance in order for this to rotate through here, to print in place and all of that, at the same time without being too wide where the ball joint falls out. But, long story short, as you can see, snap is off. This thing pivots. Nope, looks like we need to trim that a little bit more. Let's do it again. And actually, you know, I'm going to go the easier route. We'll just grab the line tool and say, I want to trim, whoops, I want to trim that much off. There we go. Let's remesh, smooth it out, and then grab our pivot here. Now you can see it clears it with ease all the way back to as far as a knee should go. Turn X-ray off. Hopefully that was helpful. I think we all learned something here today. And if you want to go further back, obviously you'd have to trim this further back here. Or again, you could trim the edge of the our shin piece here. Remesh that and smooth it. And there you go. Again, without doing a lot of testing or anything like that, that was, you know, it was just a rough, quick, impromptu example. But that's how I would do a pivot joint. And ironically, I'm thinking of doing a ball joint, a ball pivot. I'm thinking of doing a ball pivot on my Scarecrow's arms. Either that, or I'll just do a single, you know, single axis pivot like this, like I did with my penguin. Or the Penguin Ghost, if you're familiar with him. That's our Halloween version. Yeah. Glad we could help. Be sure to give us a follow. I don't need this. We'll just go ahead and move on. You know what? You never know who might want to see it again. So let's go ahead and save our ball joint test. You never know who's going to say, hey, how did you do that? And then instead of doing it all over, I'll just say, look, there it is. Figured out. Good luck. I'm kidding. Give us a follow. Subscribe. We've got all kinds of links in our bio. If you want to join our Discord, when I say our, that's marketing speak for my. If you want to join my Discord, that's where you find all the stuff. All right, back to our Scarecrow. What time is it? I am running out of time here. I've got some errands I gotta do. My knees, I'm going to do what's called an elbow joint. Basically, it's going to just be a cut through here with a bar or a pin going through. But like I said, I don't know that I'm going to get to that today. Alright, let me turn my grid on because I think we might be... Oh wait, no, not yet. Shoot. Yeah, I don't want these legs to be completely symmetrical in their look, so I think what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and join these objects. These are our shoes. I think I'm going to stretch those out just a little bit. Alright, maybe flatten them down just a smidge. Shoes, pants. I feel like I want to keep the shoes separate at least for now, so I'm going to move the pants up a little bit like this. to the body. Let's go ahead and mesh these all together. Now the legs are their own individual items. Let's see, the arms are too. I'm going to pull the arm out. Okay, so the arms are their own items. Alright, I'm going to validate. Actually, yeah, we'll validate. We'll join the children. And then we're going to attach that to the body through the magical remesh tool. And then we'll grab our smooth tool. Come in here and smooth the junction between. I don't know how this is going to work, if it's going to work, I should say. I'm going to get rid of, actually, I can't get rid of it, so we'll just, I'm going to hide this for now. We don't need to see that. Because what I want to do is I want to cut these legs out and then apply pivots to them too, but I'm wondering if I should have kept them as separate objects. Oh well, tell you what. Let's go ahead and save, and then save. Actually, I already have a version. Well, we'll save another version. And we can come back. Let's see, I'm going to solo this. Because I think the first thing that we need to do is work on articulating the legs away from the body. So let's do a split. Go into polygon. Okay, now if I do a split here, but it only splits one side. I don't like that. I need to split both sides. So maybe what I do is I do a split all the way across, so I get the legs off the body. Thinking maybe now I should have left the legs on the body, or apart from the body, and then split the legs in half. It's going to rotate this way, so the circle needs to go here. That's going to split the whole thing. Sorry, I'm just thinking here, folks. This is an iPad Pro running the M4 chip, so it's a recent model, and we're running Nomad Sculpt as the application. So if we split the legs here, we'll get rotation. I think this is the way to go, and then split the legs in half. But let's turn it around and see. Whoop. Well, there's only one way to know for sure, so we're going to split this now down the center. I'm going to turn on grid so we can see where the center is. So now we have multiple objects. Question is, will it pivot correctly? Alright, I know there'll be some trimming back there. And up here. My objective is to get it to 90 degrees, so let's snap it to 90 and see what we got. Turn the grid off. So we'll have to carve it. Turn X-ray on here. We'll have to carve this out here. Actually, let's do see-through action. So remesh isn't on the Android version. Tim, if you're still here. And I feel like I want to keep the center. So if I put a V here, let's try that real quick. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to delete that leg because we're going to actually just work with one leg. Let's grab our line tool. Let's split it here. And then this piece here, whoop, that piece there can be rejoined to the body. And then the leg will move out. Yeah, let's try that. Let's, all right, I'm going to throw a repeater on this, a mirror repeater. Turn X-ray off, and I'm going to grab this piece, this one, and this one, and we're going to mesh it together. So it's all one. All right, one object. My bad. This actually needs to be validated into one piece. Let's join it together through our remesh. There we go. All right, let's go over here and validate our object again. And now do a remesh. There we go, it's one object. And we can remesh these pieces together. All right. Now this object here, which we have moved the pivot point on, so there still have to be some trimming. Keep in mind too, in order to make this work from a rotational standpoint, we have to, or an articulation standpoint, we have to move it down and away from our original model, like that. We could use the Boolean, but it's just easier to do it this way. And then I think what I would do is probably go ahead and compress it a little bit. How much rotation do we have? All right, if we clean that up, that's pretty close that way. This way it gets a little dirty up here. So let's go ahead and remesh this. And then maybe grab our smooth tool and knock these corners down a little bit. This a little bit, clean it up, turn on our mirroring symmetry. Alright, let's turn that back down, grab this item here and rotate it once again. Alright, we're good till we hit right about there. That's not bad for articulation. I don't know that we need it to go 90 degrees. Whoop. So we can definitely get that much. Although if we want it to sit up, we'll need that 90-degree rotation. Let's go ahead and grab our move tool. Let's try that on this piece here. Let's move that in. Up. Trying to respect the profile of the leg and the body where they join together. I don't want it to be too obvious that it articulates. Alright, so that's going to have to come up quite a bit. We're not going to indent the leg, we'll have to tell you what, let's set this to 90 degrees. That's where it has to be if we want him to sit up. And I'm not even sure it's going to be possible at this point, but we're just playing around with the notion that we might make him sit up. How about this back here? Oh yeah, that's an angle, so that's cutting in here too. Actually, it's cutting in quite a bit. So let's do this. Let's try something. We're going to use the same technique that I showed you before, and we're going to create a Boolean out of this leg. So I'm just going to clone it. And we'll set the blending to less than 100%. And we're going to inflate it. So we can cut out everything that we need in relationship to this Boolean to make the rotation happen. And we might need to do some cuts in between, so let's clone it again, and we'll hide this one, but this is our clone. That's our clone, and this is our, oh, I thought it was our body. Where is it? Oh, that's the body. Not sure what that's the leg. Alright, we don't want that. So here we go. We got our clone, and then the body. And we're going to go ahead and cut that out of there and see what we got. Let's do a quick remesh and a cleanup. Alright. So I want this piece and this piece, and we'll hide everything else. Alright, so that's going to allow us to get that leg up into a 90-degree position. Alright. I'm going to set this again to about 75% opacity so we can see through. And we're going to turn off our 90R snap and rotate it through its, rotate, not move. I think that might actually work. Alright, it's scraping right there. You can see the geometry going through. See that intersection right there? This geometry here, you can see that line there. Basically that means it's intersecting until it gets to here. So we need to tune that just a little bit to accommodate. Now, one thing I just remembered is that we're going to be that's quite a gap on the front there. So what we could do is we could bring some geometry down here to act as a cover. Not too much though. It's going to intersect with our leg if we do. Thinking of narrowing that a little bit. That's just kind of a harsh solution here. But again, that's the sacrifice you have to make if you want this guy to be able to sit down and bend his, bend this leg up at 90 degrees. That's what that looks like. It's just the mechanics of it. Not much you can do to change it. You can come up with different joints and all that, but at the end of the day, now what you could do, actually, is you could slice this piece here, and then it could pivot on a piece that's left here. So that might be what I try next to accomplish this. Because, like I said, that just leaves a large gap up there, which personally I don't. Again, it doesn't have to look exactly like, like a real life, Scarecrow, but the closer you can get it to looking like the real thing is a good thing. It's a good goal to aim for. But on that note, it is 3:10 and I've got some stuff that I've got to do. So I am going to leave you all here. And I'll try to be on early tomorrow morning. I've got someone coming over for a little bit, and we're going to work on stuff around the shop here. But I'll try to get on before, and then maybe a little time afterwards. So if you want to pick up where we left off with me, And if I work, I'll probably do some work on it tonight. So if nothing else, you can stop in tomorrow and I can kind of run you through what the solution was that I finally wound up pursuing to make this happen. But again, remember that rotation curve has to happen, and that's why this is a bit of a challenge. But we'll get it sorted out. In the meantime, everybody have a good, productive rest of your day. It's